struggled with a lot. I have wanted to go to Africa for a very long time, but I thought I would go, in my mind, to be a missionary, and then going and staying for years and years and years and never coming back. But after being there short term a couple of times, I really understand the need for furlough. I really do. I mean, it's hard to live like that. We didn't grow up that way. We're not used to it. It's very hard to live like that. But the verse that speaks to me is Acts 1:8, the second part. And ye shall be my witnesses unto me, both in Jerusalem and in all Judea, and in Samaria, and unto the uttermost parts of the earth. And so right here, we're said to go, along with the Great Commission. So yes, it would be important to send money over there to help with food and Bibles and things like that, but having a visitor, even an American, come. You know what it's like in our churches when we have a revival and we have a guest come and speak. It does something. There's something that happens. And so being over there is important. I mean, God told us to do it.
And so how was this trip different from your last trip?
Well, last year there were 4 of us that went along with Esther. And by the way, Esther is here. We have a combo among us this evening. This is Esther. And, you know, we all, especially myself, owe her so much gratitude because it's because of her service for the Lord that I was able to go to this place that already has a church and her home where I could stay and everything that's been established like the Jubilee. So last year there were 4 of us that went with Esther, and we saw around 200 people humble themselves before Christ, ask forgiveness for their sin, and accept the gift of salvation through the shed blood of Jesus. And we traveled to many churches, but this year I was the only person to go with Esther. We didn't get to travel as much, but instead the people were brought to us, and I have so much information about that in my presentation.
Well, we're all waiting to see this, so would you mind showing us?
Did you guys... Can you move that? Is it off? Okay. Did you enjoy your free history lecture, everyone? From the professor? Next week he'll be charging all of you tuition. Okay. So this is Kenya right here, and this dot here is Nairobi, and we were just a few hours east and south of there, so not as far as the coast. This is the coast, so Mombasa's down there. We're about roughly halfway between Nairobi and Mombasa, and I felt very safe away from the difficulties that were going on there. And I didn't even, in Mbitini where we are, I didn't see a Muslim at all. Now Nairobi is a totally different story, and even in Kitui is the next closest city where we traveled to buy supplies, and I saw a lot of Muslims there. And I gave a tract to one store owner. They had a sign outside that said they were closing early for Ramadan, and so I went in and gave him a tract, and he smiled at me, and he was so happy to be handed this, so I just pray whatever comes of that, God would use. Getting to Nairobi, am I really blocking some people's way? Because I don't know where else I can go. Okay, getting to Nairobi. This is Esther and I at the airport. There's my bags. This is the first hotel in Nairobi. Cost 3,000 Kenya shillings, which I converted as $36 with breakfast included. It's a pretty nice place. I mean, much better than Super 8 here for that price. Here's a reference chart for you. The exchange rate this year was 83, which is low. Last year when I was there, it was almost 92. And so for 100 shillings, that's at an exchange rate of 83, that's about $1.20. So if the exchange rate's 100, then it would be like a 1 to 100 ratio. $1 for us, like 100 shillings. So roughly $1 for 100 shillings. So there's the breakdown. So $10 is about 1,000 shillings. Getting to Mbitini, this is the Mutatu that we rented. Basically, it's public transportation, like a company owns these vehicles, they pay drivers, you rent a seat on the bus. But what is typical of us when we go and do this ministry is to rent the entire vehicle and split the cost among who's there, because we have so much luggage. and it gets us straight from Nairobi to our destination without stopping repeatedly. And it's usually within our means to do that. You know, we can rent the whole thing for, well, my portion was maybe like $50. So a 4-hour ride for $50, not too bad. And the first Mutatu we were in, it actually broke down because the alternator belt was not working. And they told me I had to get out because the engine is under the seat. I had no idea. I was sitting on the engine. And then every time I rode in the front, from then on, I could feel the heat. And I was like, yeah, I have to tell that's the engine under there now. So this is the first day arriving. This is the church property and the orphanage. It's called Mbitini Emmanuel Children's Home. And although it doesn't really sound like you say the M, I always was saying the M is silent, but this year I started to hear it. They do say the M, but it's just so slight that we don't pick it up. So B always has an M in front of it. G always has an N in front of it. This is some scenery. These really big trees, although I think they're beautiful in the landscape, they draw a lot of water out of the ground, and it's taking water away from the crops and the rivers and that. So these are actually a nuisance. This is like a huge problem that they have there. If people can, they will cut these down and then use them for firewood, of course, but they're all over the place. Here's a few of the roads. The one up here on the right is Thika Road. That goes out of Nairobi. This one is probably on the way to Kitui. So there are a few paved roads, but then after you leave a major area, out of Kitui, we have an hour drive on dirt roads. And these are not even like our dirt roads. These are like dirt roads. Like they're all washboard. There's holes in them. I mean, these are terrible roads, which is what makes transportation there so difficult. I mean, transportation is hard, and it's a problem. I mean, it's a hindrance to the ministry for sure, because trying to get places is very difficult. Here's some more scenery. Up there you can see that's a riverbed, and that's how much water is in it. And there is water that's down below, which I'll have slides later about. I saw them that they actually dig, because I had asked, where do they get the water? And somebody told me the riverbed, and I go, the riverbed that has no water in it? And they said, yeah, they dig down and they can find water. This is cactus. I didn't see cactus last year, so I was interested in that. And then a thorn bush, or a thorn tree. And you see these all over, not only as a tree, but also bushes. And it's so neat how they can use this kind of thing. Like, this is your natural defense. If you want a fence around your property, just cut a bunch of this, and you stick it around to keep out animals and thieves. And so they really use whatever they have. The way of life. This is laundry day at the orphanage. They're using a wheelbarrow, which is not clean to start with. And there is a well there, so they fill up the cans, take it over, dump everything in there, and then of course hang it up. This is the market. The market is every Saturday, and we go up there and buy, tomatoes, onions, things we need to cook for the week. You can get that stuff throughout the week at some of the stores, but this is when everybody comes, and you can get, good deals, and there's more products there. And this, if you notice the green bag right here, was my purchase, which is out on the table. This boy was selling these, walking around, and I was so impressed that they took these old food bags, turned it into something useful, and then trying to turn it into a source of income. And it would cost me 50 shillings, which is about 50 cents. So and then that bag came in really handy, so I was very glad I bought that. So here's how you carry things. This is Mileni carrying milk on her head, that she bought milk in town, just put it on her head and walked home. Then I just took this of this woman. I mean, look at the load she's carrying. And this is on her head. Her head is carrying that weight. But this day we went out soul winning, and we had taken loaves of bread and things, little New Testaments and things, that we loaded up this bag. And this was at the end, and we were walking back, and I said, I'm going to try this. And I put that on my head. It's actually a very good way to carry things. You don't feel it. It's a very, you think about the weight on your shoulders. That's worse than just having it on your back. This is how they carry their children. They use the lassos, which I have hanging up out here. The lasso is everything to them. It's the towel, the hat, the blanket, your sweater. It's how you carry your child. You carry your items from town. So I practiced. They use animals a lot there, pulling carts with water and supplies, food, firewood, things like that. And this donkey, I watched him for about 15 minutes giving himself a massage on this pole. I just thought it was so cute. He just looked like he needed love, but I love animals, but I try not to touch them there because Kim said she petted the dogs one year and she got ringworm. So I love the animals, but I try not to touch them. So you go to town and you buy like a kilo of grain, corn, grain, something, beans, like that. Some of them you have to take to the mill and get it, first it has to be shelled and then it can be crushed. And then this woman has a basket, and it's just like we read in the Bible, where the Bible just comes to life when you're in these places, because when you watch her and she's going like this and everything's flying up and all the chaff is flying in the wind, which we read about in the Bible. The chaff will float away. And I got to see that in real life. This is food preparation. They're sitting outside because you don't sit inside your hut or your house. You do all your cooking out if you can. And they chop everything by hand. See, everything, you have to eat that stuff cooked because the sanitary conditions, their hands are all over this stuff, and then you don't want to put that in your body raw. This is at Esther's house, actually, the cooking here. Here she is making chapati, which is like a tortilla. It's like fried dough, and we didn't make any of that tonight. It's fairly labor intensive. It takes a good while to cook. And up here, this is making the tea, and their tea is like chai. It has milk and it has some spices in it, and that is what made me very ill. So after I had that experience, I didn't drink any more tea. So this is the dry riverbed. This is a riverbed, no water. So we got out, we were in a car, we stopped and we got out, and these two men were there, and they invited me over to show me, he had like this dug out of dirt, a little path to walk down there, fill up the buckets, and then he came up, and then I followed him up a hill, and we get to the top of the hill, and there's this whole garden there. He was taking the water up to go irrigate, and so I asked if they had any produce ready to sell, and I bought some tomatoes right there. So how's that for farm to table? These people, between Esther's house is about half a mile from the orphanage and church property, and so every day for the 5 weeks I was there, we were going past about halfway. These men were digging a well, and it's hard work, so they'd be sitting up there taking a break a lot of times, and I'd wave to them. And it was toward the end of the trip, and I really had to go see it, so I went up there, and I stood as far back as I could and took a picture like that, because it's scary. That is far. If you fell in that. And I said, how do we get down there? They just climbed this rope. I mean, that takes a lot of upper body strength. I don't know how well you can see it, but up here, the pattern in the dirt, they sweep the dirt every day, which last year, it was such a foreign concept to me. I was like, you're sweeping dirt. But it really does make a difference because leaves will fall and litter will come around. And so every day, even Sundays, I mean, they get up, they get ready to go to church and everything, but every day they sweep. And these are the brooms. I saw these for sale at Tui, and I took that picture. And this is Muthingo. She's one of the orphans, and the orphan girls usually fight over who gets to come and stay at Esther's house when she comes every year, because they want to cook for her and clean for her and do everything because they are so grateful. And they know that they get some perks, like the food that she has and the juice and everything that they don't get on a regular basis. So this is how you go to the bathroom and take a shower. We have an actual toilet up here. This is at Esther's house. This is a barrel with water and a cup. And you can scoop it and fill the tank and then actually flush it. But to fill about half the tank takes at least 10 scoops of water because I counted. And it's hard work. So if you're really lazy, you just pour some water in here. And it does okay. This is your shower. This one's for the boiled water, the hot water, and this one's the room temperature water. So you go out to this barrel, take the pitcher, fill up this bucket, go boil the water, then bring it in, and then you take one of these tubs and you fill, I usually would do 2 scoops of the boiled and 2 scoops of regular, and then you have warm, hot/warm water to shower. Laundry, I was doing laundry. I milked a cow, first time in my life, and doing hair. It's really like here, African Americans that are here. Esther's daughter Catherine said at one point, African Americans are really like us, aren't they? I said, yeah, they really are. I mean, the same cultural things that they do, like doing the hair and the family gatherings and things. This is my room. I have my mosquito net here. I keep it always tucked in because I don't want any surprises when I get in bed. This is my window, and since the lesso is your towel, you hang it, you clothespin it to the window during the day so it dries, or even overnight so it dries. And then there's enough breeze there that it's always dry when you go to use it again. And they set me up a little table here and told me I could do my studying there, and I did. And I got some coat hangers in Katui, and then I had another table for food and other things that I had gotten. We did take a trip to Sekuru because there was a wedding there, and the whole choir from the church was supposed to go, and so we went with them. And this is when we rented, everybody paid, and they rented this. And this is us getting a flat tire. But luckily it was only about 10 minutes and we were back on the road because they're prepared for this kind of thing. And the next town we came to, they always have a vehicle maintenance place and you get your flat fixed, and so then the next time it happens, you're ready. This is a video, but we had difficulty playing it earlier, so I'm just going to skip this and I'll play it for you later. This is, when we were in Sekuru, I was given this sheep. So I have a sheep in Kenya, and the idea was that we would go back and we would eat it, but I didn't want to eat it, so I still have a sheep over there. And when you're 4 or 5 hour drive from your destination, and you're given a sheep, how do you get that sheep home? Well, they tied it under the seat. Poor little thing. And then when they took it out, it was just like so sore. I mean, you could have attacked it right there. It had no energy to move. And then these are puppies. They had puppies. There's dogs all over, but I hadn't seen puppies until we were there. Now this on the left is a wedding, and on the right is a funeral, and this is the way of life section, so I just was showing some things, the wedding and the funeral. I didn't go to the funeral, those are Esther's pictures, but the wedding, I would like to tell you about the bride and groom here. This is the groom, this is the bride. These people are about in their 60s or 70s, and they have about 10 kids. Well, this man was just ordained to be a pastor, and he was never legally married to his wife. And so he wanted to set the right example and to have a legal wedding and get the document and pay the fee and have it recorded. So even though they've been together for 50 years or so, they got married. Here's the orphanage. This is Kasungwa. She's really sweet. And this is Lasoi. And the story about Lasoi, Esther told me sometime between my visit last year and going this year. I was at her house. We get together sometimes, and she told me that more and more children come to the orphanage all the time. And they know this woman in Mbitini. It was somewhere we went last year. And she called them up at the orphanage and said, I need you to take this child. This is my granddaughter. And what happened was the woman's son had married a lady from Tanzania who was a Maasai tribe. And I think he'd been living there with her, and then he murdered her. And he took the daughter, this girl, traveled to his mom's house, dumped her in the middle of the night, and left. And so she wakes up to find her granddaughter here, who's an orphan, basically. I mean, the father's alive, but he's a felon. And so they took her in, and she didn't know, what's really sad about the story is she didn't know the language. I mean, she's like, she came there when she was 3, now she's about 4. But, I mean, she was just learning to speak anyway, but she couldn't communicate with all these people there. Here, this is my sheep. They're taking care of my sheep. This is gathering firewood, and here they got the grain or the corn in the big sacks, and they have to separate the chaff, so they're all out here working on that. And they were singing. I got some video of them singing as they worked. This is mealtime. They serve up the food in the bowls, and they come through and get it and go sit down, and they always pray first. Kids just being kids. Miss Linda, you gave me those pom-poms, and I handed them out one of the first days I was there, and boy, did they love them. I said, I have these things, they don't really have a purpose. You should have seen them, like they were coming, grabbing them, just playing with them. I mean, it's something colorful and fun they don't have, you know. And then I brought a kite, and I got it from Dollar Tree, so I knew it was going to fall apart, but I took it the windiest day there was, and we couldn't ever get it to stay up in the air, but they would just hold it and just run, and they thought that was fun. Anyway. Here I am painting nails. I did that last year also. I took some nail polish, and they're showing off their nails. Now, this is one of my sweetest pictures that I have this year, I think, because this boy, Wanzia, is holding a very, very worn New Testament that was sent there by me. And I just thought it was so sweet that he is reading it and using it. And they wanted me to do Bible drills with some of the kids in a downtime. And so they were gathering up Bibles, and he brought his out. And when I saw it, it just really touched me. This is Jadida. She's one of the caretakers of the orphanage, because Esther's here most of the year. So Jadida and this young woman, she's actually the same age as me, Kanini, they are the caretakers of all the children there. And then Pastor Theo is there every day, and Pastor John and some other people to look out for things. But Kanini lives in the dorm with the children. And then this is a barrel with a spigot for hand washing that I was able to purchase for them to use because I taught them lessons on hygiene last year and this year. And I didn't know what they were doing before, but they're washing their hands now. And they're still not using soap, but they're at least rinsing. So these are the things that I was able to provide the orphanage: 15 cups, 19 bowls, handkerchiefs, toothpaste and toothbrushes, the barrel. We had a birthday party for Esther and Theo. Both their birthdays are in August, and so to give the kids juice and biscuits, they don't, I mean, all they ever eat is corns and beans, really. So that's such a treat for them. And then I was able to clothe 48 of the 57 orphans, and that was because the money ran out. So I'm still going to be working on getting money for those last 9 to have clothes. And there's 3 photos of me with most of the children. I didn't have a photo like this from last year, so this year I made sure I got several pictures with most of the kids. See, this is the back of one girl's skirt, just torn and re-sewn, and look at her sweatshirt here. And these are the same clothes they were all wearing last year. I recognized them by the same clothes that they wore last year. And they just needed new clothes. I just knew that that's what they needed this year. And the mattresses are in terrible shape, and it's very expensive because there's almost 60 kids to buy mattresses for. And these are they have metal frame beds. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night, there's an orphanage service. And I was able to be the teacher for those services. They'll sing, and they'll have a lesson, and then they go to bed. And so I was teaching those this year. I did some of them last year. But I would always, as they go to leave to go to bed, I was always kissing the babies goodnight. The posters here are the ones from the Sunday school material from this church that I took and we put up. And then this picture is after one of the orphanage services. These children stayed to accept Christ, and Esther led them to the Lord. That was half of my presentation. I actually don't know the time. Am I okay?
6:45.
Okay. All right. So that was half, but the next part should go a little faster because there were more slides on this one. I had some issues with saving the document. I had to break it up into two. Okay. So the ministry. These two photos are from the day that Winnie, my translator, and I went out soul winning. And these two little girls we walked onto the property and they were by themselves. It was Saturday, which is market day, so a lot of the parents were in town and they just leave the kids at home. And so these two girls, as young as they were, they said they said they go to church, but yet they had never heard about Jesus, and both of them prayed to accept Christ. So, I mean, I don't really know if they understood or what, but I gave them, bread and a Bible and that, so. And then these two teen boys, what they're doing here, does anyone know what they're doing? I didn't know. Anyone? They're making charcoal. They take wood and they basically put it in this, like really hot environment. And then they sell it, and for like a big bucket, it's like 400 shillings. So if you sell a big bucket, that's good income every time you do it for basically something that's free. Because you just get some firewood wherever and then go do this to it. But again, these two young men, I asked them if they knew about Jesus. They said yes, and then I said, well, have you ever accepted Christ? And they said no, and I said, well, we can do that right now if you want. And they both prayed, so you never know what somebody's heart is, but they did pray. So the decisions for Christ. For 4 weeks of Sunday school, 6 church visitations, 3 days of the Jubilee with at least 5 invitations, showing the Jesus film before and after there was an invitation, 5 days of VBS, 1 private school visit, 1 day of soul winning, and the 8 orphanage services. We believe there were 414 people who accepted Christ. But I was more comfortable with the number, knowing that the number last year was accurate because we had many people who were watching the hands and counting. And this year it was just Esther and I, and she'd be translating and talking, and she's like, did you count? And I'm like, did you count? And so we had more difficulty knowing exact numbers, but this, even if this number is 100, let's say it's 100 off, it's still, it was an incredible thing to be a part of. And I mean, really, it just like blows my mind. I really can't even comprehend this, because this doesn't happen in America. When have you ever been part of a ministry in America where 400 people were saved? I mean, it's just so incredible to go there and just be used. I mean, I'm actually glad I don't really comprehend it, because then it would be something to be prideful about. But it's not, this is not me. I mean, totally God. There's no way. I don't save people. I can't do that. So this was also the soul winning day. This woman, Malik, here she is. She is taking these plants that grow all over. She's got a knife under her foot and she's shredding it. And imagine like the fibers of celery. That's kind of like what it is. So she's shredding away the juicy part, and what remains are the fibers, and then she's turning it into rope. And while I'm watching her do this, and she was talking and telling Winnie, and then when she was done, Winnie told me what she said. And here's some video. I don't know if you can hear her, but it's in Kakamba anyway. But you can watch what she's doing with what she's doing here. So she was saying, she told Winnie that the famine in this area has affected her family so badly. Her son and some other people live on the property with her. They only survive by this rope making. That's the only way that they are alive right now. And so her knife was in really bad shape. And so I asked how much a knife was, 200 shillings. So basically $2. And I asked if she had any rope ready to sell, and she had one that was almost done. So she finished it up. And then I think the rope sells for something like 50 shillings, but I ended up giving her at least 300 so she could buy a new knife and to buy the rope. And then the rope went for my sheep anyway. So I provided for my sheep a new rope and helped out this family. And this is a story that's just been on my mind a lot. This is some more ministry. This was the day I went to the private school. The public school teachers, first when I was there, they were on their winter break. It's so weird because we were on summer break, they were on winter break. But then when they were supposed to resume, the teachers were on strike. So I was planning to go to the public schools and speak because I did a little bit of that last year, but I wasn't able to this year. But I was able to go. The private schools were in session. This one's called New Hope, and the man who runs it is a pastor. So he's, a believer in that area, and his wife, they run this school. And so I set it up with him that I was coming over this day, and they had all the students gather there, and I let them ask me questions, and I gave the salvation message. And I also had tracts in Kakamba that I gave them to the teachers to hand out to the older students who could read it really well. And this is and so I think it was something like 60 hands, but I have no way of knowing because it was just me. And then this is one of the orphanage services where I was teaching. And then this young lady here goes to the church in Mbitini, and she kept asking Esther for a Bible, and Esther kept forgetting to get her one, and I had bought a few, and so on my last Sunday, I gave her one, and so she's been asking for it for a very long time, so I was able to provide that. Here's Vacation Bible School. We averaged about 130 children a day, but about 30 of those from the orphanage. So around 100 from the community. But they came from very far distances. Esther was talking to some people one day, and they were telling that some kids from this one town had come to the VBS, and she was like, "They did? That's really far." I had 3 different translators who translated for me that week. I had Winnie, she's 18 years old at the orphanage. She's been there for 13 years. And actually, Jadida, the caretaker, is her mother, or her grandmother. So she translated for me. This is Shadrach. He translated for me, and Esther one of the days. This was game time, and then this was what we talked about that week all came from the Sunday school curriculum from this church that you allowed me to go through. And so the week was on royalty, and we talked about Esther and David and Jesus, of course, the King of Kings. And so the first day on Monday, they made these crowns, and it was the biggest hit ever. I mean, I thought it would go over well, but I had no idea. They were coming back every day wearing them. They were so proud of these. I mean, you can see pictures from Friday, and there's still kids wearing these crowns. So it was just, we just had colored paper with hole punch, put pipe cleaners around, and then we had little jewel stickers, also from Miss Linda, that they got to decorate them, and they were so proud of them. They loved them. So this is the older group, the 9 to 12-year-olds, and then this is the younger group, the 5 to 8-year-olds. Video.
My God is
English in school, and all of high school is conducted in English. For the younger kids, it's a little more difficult because they're just learning it. Because basically everyone there can speak 3 languages. Their mother tongue, here is Kikamba, Swahili, because that's a national language and will always be taught in school, and then English. But these littler kids, it's better when you do the songs with them that are in English to have actions. And then I always want somebody to translate what the words are so that you kind of have an idea of what's going on. Oh, here's some more of VBS. This was on Friday when I did awards. I had a whole table here of prizes. And this girl, she got an award for having integrity when playing a game. Because she was basically the only child who followed the rule. So I gave her an award. And this is Winnie. She's the 18-year-old who translated. And that is Esther translating. And yeah, you can see this is the flannel board I set up, and I always had the verses up here and did all the storytelling, and it went over really well. I wasn't able to have that preparation last year, so it went really well this year. Churches and pastors. This is the church in Musosia, and this is the pastor Bernard. Now, one of the things about a lot of these churches are church plants of Mbitini Gospel Baptist Church. So there's like 14 or 15 churches that have been planted out of this church, and some of the men who are pastoring them attended the Bible school at Mbitini Gospel Baptist Church, and then go out and plant these churches and pastor them. So what happens is these churches are all over, and these men live all over, and they end up, one of them lives here and pastors over here, the other one lives here and pastors over here, and they do not live near where they're pastoring. And like we've already established, transportation is so difficult. So motorbikes and parsonages are 2 things that they really need, because if they have a parsonage, then the man doesn't have to live so far away, and he can live there. And a lot of times that is what happens. Like the man will live or stay at the church, near the church, something like that, when he needs to be there for services. Meanwhile, his family is back in the other town, and they go to the church there. It's very hard to see how they're so split. So this man, Bernard, he lives in Mbitini, but he pastors a church in Musosia, which is a 20-minute van ride. So if you walk that up and down hills on dirt roads, I mean, that's a good walk. A couple hours, 2 hours maybe. But then, if you don't want to walk it and you need to get the public means to take it there, you've got to have money. And these churches are so small, these pastors, they hardly make anything with what, they're pastoring full time, and they don't really get much money from doing this. And this church is Maluti, and this is Pastor Daniel, and he doesn't live in Maluti either. So these are some of the pastors. They usually get together about once a month to, talk over their needs and encourage each other and whatever. They take care of all their business. They have, a treasurer, a secretary. They have a whole established group. Their prayer requests from the area the pastors really want a vehicle so that they don't have to spend so much money for the public transportation. And then Pastor Sammy, Theo is very close to retirement age. And people are starting to wonder what's going to happen when when Esther and Theo retire from the ministry. Who's going to care for these children? What's going to happen? How's it going to get taken over? And Sammy has been applying for a green card a couple of years now. He's already been denied, but you can keep applying. And he would really like to be able to come to America to work to get money to support the children, just like Esther does right now. And then women in several places would ask us, please pray for me because I want to come to the Jubilee next year. And for whatever reason, they haven't been able to. And transportation, of course, is so important. And Kim, the lady from Kansas, she fundraises to be able to send these women. These women don't usually pay for their transportation because they can't. So a lot of women want to be able to go, but some churches have limited spots. It just depends on the money and all of that. This is a church in Kongu. This is a church in Kaveta. This is also Kaveta. And this church, Kaveta, right here, the lesso out there, the fabric that has the blue and gold circles, they gave Esther and I those. So that was so sweet. They were the only church this year to give us gifts, and they also gave us a lot of chicken, which we were also supposed to eat, but I petitioned for the chicken's life, and I think it's still alive, right, Esther? Yeah. So the church's report from last year we traveled to a lot of the churches. This year we didn't get to do as much of that, but from last year, they reported growth, growth, growth. And I mean, I guess I just never really thought about it. I didn't think that what we went and did would have that kind of an impact, but when we got there, everyone was saying there was all these revivals in these churches, and I was like, oh, okay, well, it had a lasting impact. So one of those things was that there was significantly higher attendance at the Jubilee. And I'll just tell you now, last year was the biggest crowd they've had to date. It was about 500-something women. This year, it was about 1,000. So when we say it was significantly higher, it was significantly higher. It basically doubled in 1 year. And we don't know the exact number because every other year they've registered when they show up, but this year they had them register at their churches and they pay like 20 shillings registration fee and get their name there. Well, there were 826 that were registered, but when they go up at the end, they can get a kilo of corn before they leave. There were, like Esther said, about 150 that showed up to get corn who weren't registered. So the number was near 1,000, and there were so many there that weren't even registered. That they've had maturing in the Lord, unity among members. 5 husbands were saved because of their wives. 4 families came to churches because of soul-winning home visits. The members, with their own hands, make the bricks to build their buildings. And they lay the cement, and they do everything that's needed to make their buildings. And this has always been ongoing, but within the last year, it's been even more so that they're working on their buildings. And one pastor, Daniel in Maluti, he had actually left because it was so difficult to support his family. And when he saw the revival that was going on within this last year, he just came back to pastor a church again. In Sekuru, I taught Sunday school there because we were there the wedding was Saturday and we were there on Sunday and then we left that afternoon. And they had just started Sunday school about a month before we got there, and so they had 10 kids, and this girl accepted Christ. And this is the church in Kisayani. This man, Jacob, he's the pastor, and he is the chairman of this pastor's group. And they have one of the most pathetic church buildings still. This was a temporary building, and they've been in it well over a year because they were in this last year. They already have a field across the street, but they don't have the money to make the bricks, and you need water to make bricks, and when they don't have water, that's difficult too. So they don't have a permanent building yet. And then, of course, you look at this one, and this is actually a church in Nairobi. I was flying out Sunday evening, and we were able to go to church that morning at this church. And this church actually is pastored by a man who was a teacher at the Bible school when Esther went there. So she knows the pastor of this church. And he remembered her. He said, "You haven't changed after all these years." So this is the Jubilee attendance. These are the churches down here. Some of them, not all of them, but the ones that had reported numbers to me that I wrote down. Kangundo last year had 5. This year had about 16 attend. So you can see from last year, even Kisayani had 1, and this year they had 9. But then Kivuli had major growth, and so it was incredible. I just wonder what's going to happen next year. I mean, this is the question. Think about this. where do you put 1,000 people? If 1,000 of us were meeting somewhere, we'd have 4 people to a hotel room with our bathroom and our beds and everything. They sleep on the ground. They just lay a lasso down and just go to sleep there. And they all bring their own bowl and cup and spoon. And then they are provided the meals. They go through the lunch line and get their food, but they bring their own dishes. This is the church in Mbitini. This is, okay, I've got to tell you the difference here. Okay, this is Sunday school, where you see all children. This is church, no children. Okay, in Kenya, this is what they do. On Sunday mornings, the children get up and go to Sunday school. Then they go home, and the adults come to church. And I'm not really sure why, but I don't know if this is my guess, or if I was told that somebody has to be home with the animals and taking care of things, and so they rotate. So children come to Sunday school, and adults come to church. And this is after service on my last Sunday there. And these kids here are the orphanage kids, so they live there. Here's the Jubilee. This is how they arrive with the rented transportation, whatever they can rent. This was preparing the food. All these women are the ones in Mbitini who were getting everything ready for the Jubilee, and they would get the sacks of beans. And we were sitting there taking out the bad beans and picking out all the things that were not edible. And your hands get really dirty from doing that. And this picture is misleading because I only did it for like 10 minutes. And they did it for like all day. So here they are. This is about 1,000 women. This was the first night because they start it Wednesday evening. They do the first service. Then this is Thursday morning at 6 a.m., which I did not attend. I was still asleep. And this is during the day on Thursday. And then they do all day Thursday and then Friday morning. And then after lunch, Friday is over. So here are the pots for how you feed 1,000 people. And this is where they're eating lunch. They've brought their own dishes. And at times, I'm not a novelty to most of the people there, but I think this year, because there were so many new people with so many more people, I was just standing somewhere and this entire crowd, 360 degrees, just it was all around me. And occasionally I'd feel something like this. They just want to touch my skin and my hair, and they're just so fascinated. So I actually took a picture like this all the way around, and this was the children standing in front of me at the Jubilee. This year they have a tent. They actually set up one of those gathering tents. This is Esther speaking, me speaking, and this is handing out the corn at the end. Video. I like that one. There's quite a few songs I know some of the words to now, and that one's kind of catchy, but I don't know what the words were. So during the Jubilee, on Thursday evening, we were able to show the Jesus film, and these men from Campus Crusade brought it out from Nairobi and set it up and showed it. So we asked the Jubilee attenders to head to town and go invite people to come to the film. And when we walked out and we saw this, I mean, is that not incredible? This drove of women going to town to invite people. And I have no idea of knowing how many people came, but there were 126 that accepted Christ through the film. And this was the crowd that was gathered before the film started, but then once it got dark, I couldn't take a picture. And this is a group that came up for salvation. Now the dresses. I just included this for the women because I knew this was going to be a big thing. Okay, this was my plan. And we're very near the end. I knew from last year that you could pay a seamstress to make you a dress. And last year there was a woman named Rachel from Mbitini, and I was thinking about her all year. And I knew if I ever went back to Kenya, I would have her make me a dress, and she made me this one. Her husband was the pastor in Mbitini, and they have 4 boys. And one day he got up and left. And her family was living in the parsonage next to the church. So now there's a new pastor, but I'm very glad about this, did not kick them out. So he doesn't live in the area, but because this family is living in the parsonage, he travels from far to come just to preach. So I knew this woman just needed business, just needed support. You know, I just had this on my mind for her to make me a dress. So part of me thought, like, I'll just say, make me whatever you want. But then the control freak in me said, no, you need to pick what you like and let her know what you want her to make. So my plan was this, and I thought it was pretty good. I stood at the back of the lunch line at the Jubilee with 1,000 women and took pictures of all the dresses I liked coming through. So then, I spent way too long going through all the pictures, drawing sketches, and figuring out what I wanted. And that's how we ended up at what we did. So I really liked this one, but I didn't think it would be practical on me, so I didn't do that. And this one's just adorable, because look at the daughter and the mother match. And so this, I love this bodice, but again, I didn't think it would look good on me. This one is incredible, but I didn't choose that one either. And I had a very hard time choosing. So. But this is the one that is the model of what I'm wearing. That's the one that I chose. And then this skirt here is like the skirt of the green dress that I've already worn here. But the bodice for that one, I actually pieced together from different ones. So this is like a big project for me. But I think we can all agree it turned out pretty well. Yes. So let's talk more about dresses. I mentioned earlier that there is a Bible school where these young men can come, do Bible training, and then go get a church planted. Well, they have an offering for women too. They do dressmaking classes. So these are the dressmaking students. And look, they use paper. They use paper because they can't afford material. So all these things got put together in my mind. We need clothes for the orphans. We have dressmaking students. They use paper. Let's have a win-win situation. Buy them some material that they can use, measure actual children, make actual clothes, and clothe these kids. So these last 9 girls that need dresses, my plan is to get material. The plan is to buy it in Nairobi, buy rolls in Nairobi because we'll get a better price, get it transported out to Mbitini, and have them make dresses. And then, even after those 9 get dresses, I would love to see this continue. It's just going to be a win-win for everybody. These kids are always going to need clothes. They're always going to be growing. And these girls can get experience. So these are the needs. For the orphans, We worked on the clothing. I really wanted to be able to give them shoes as well, but as you already know, the money ran out well before that ever happened. So probably around $250 for new shoes. I'm estimating the material, did Catherine ever get back to you? No, we're waiting on Esther's daughter to find out how much the material is going to be. I'm thinking between $50 to $75 to get the material out to Mbitini. They always need food, school fees, school uniforms, and medical care. When there's a medical emergency, that's a major cost. There's almost 60 children here, and when somebody gets sick, I mean, they just start praying for God to provide when something goes wrong. The churches need hymnals and Bibles, and they really need buildings and benches and parsonages. And they also need motorbikes. And even, this would seem so basic to us, but even some of the students that come from Bible school do Bible school without a Bible. I mean, I just feel a burden, like we've just got to provide this stuff for them. They just don't have money. They don't have money. They don't have sources of income where they can get themselves a Bible. And there's an enormous rainwater container. There's two of them. I don't know if you've seen them well in any of the pictures, but they're on either side of the church. And they both have leaks, but one of them has a leak so bad, all the water that goes in it just goes right into the ground. It will cost about $200 to fix. And I was talking with Theo about it, and I said, well, what do you do when you don't, when the wells are seasonal, so they run dry sometimes. And I said, so then what do you do? And he said, we buy water from somebody else like water vendors that come through with their cart and their donkeys and their buckets. And so I said, well, do you spend enough on that it would be worth it to fix the leak? And in a roundabout way, he said yes. It would be worth it to fix the leak, but it's just they don't want to, they just feel like there's so many other things you can do with $200. But in the long run, it's really going to help. So this is the end of my trip. We got back to Nairobi. This is a different hotel, and I really like this hotel. It's really nice, and it's only $6 more expensive than the other one. It's really nice. I didn't put the bathroom picture up here, but it was so much nicer than the other one. And both of them, you get breakfast. So this is when I arrived home and saw Nathan for the first time in 5 weeks.
Do you have any questions for Mandy? We're not done yet. Don't worry, there's plenty more.
The last section is just on the food, which leads us into going and eating food. Yes?
I see some of the pictures, you see the people sitting here in sweatshirts and wrapped up in different things. So
it's funny to me.
So what temperature range are you dealing with?
It never, ever got lower than 50 while I was there. But even when it's like 80 degrees, you should see how they bundle up their babies like they're Eskimo children. I mean, it's so funny to me. And I make comments sometimes like, your child will not die if you remove the hat. You know, it's 80 out here, but they just have this idea that it's so cold. And there were only 2 nights where I actually had to go get a sweatshirt, and I was like, all right, it's cold right now. But other than that, but it's winter, and to them, it's just too cold. Yeah.
I noticed that the pictures of food was mostly the beans and the corn. Is there a vegetable garden for the orphanage, or what do they do for vegetables?
Well, that is something that has over time been something that they've been able to do, and then at times, like right now, it's not. They have an area. I've got other pictures I didn't include of this big enclosed, like a netted area where they're trying to grow vegetables, but you need water to do that, and so they always have the irrigation issue. And then Esther actually has a field where she used to have a huge garden, and the orphans would come out there every day and go work the land. But what happened to that? I don't know. It's not in operation right now, and I don't remember why.
Because of the rain.
Rain. Yeah.
So the clothing and shoes issue, it's more prudent to try to buy things there than, and what is available at what type of prices
Okay.
for clothing?
Yeah, I learned a lot this year, and one of the things I learned is that you do not want to try to buy clothes for 60 kids. It's hard. We took their measurements, we got their sizes, and we still had mistakes. There were some kids, we had these pants were too big, and this was the last kid, and it was very difficult. And Esther, she said, I used to do it, and then a few years ago, I said, I'm not doing it anymore, and she sends her daughter to do it. It is difficult. And they were saying, if you think clothes are hard, try to do shoes. So, but as far as the transporting things from here, no, it's a lot better to get them there because you can ship things there, but then they have to pay to get packages out of customs. So that's the problem with shipping. I mean, yeah, it would be great if we could do that. And the other thing that's okay to do is for somebody to physically take it, but then again, now you're paying luggage fees.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if I should tell, but she spent almost $300 with the extra luggage she took. And to me, we could take $300 there and buy some things there and probably come out ahead from what was taken.
What does it cost to clothe a child just with a basic outfit? I mean, what did
We
you
had
buy?
estimated, girls always wear skirts or dresses. The little girls wear a dress, but the bigger ones, it's harder to find a full dress, so it'll be a top and a skirt. Catherine had estimated to me that it would be $500 per child, 500 shillings. So roughly $5, really more like $6. But the money ran out.
Right.
And with some of them, it was like the littler clothes cost less, which would be offset by the clothes of some of the bigger ones. But I mean, if we want to be realistic, $10 per child, there's 60 children. $600. Yeah, because I gave them around $400, and it didn't clothe them all.
Anyone else?
Well, of course, I'll answer any questions when we're through, but the last section is, I'm not sure we're all thinking about it, is the food. Dairy is not common there because you don't have refrigeration, but whenever we would travel to Kitui, last year I didn't go to Kitui at all because I had no money, I couldn't get myself there, I couldn't buy anything, but this year, having more means, I was able to go there a few times, and every time I went, we'd go to the store called Navis, and I would go buy myself a yogurt. And so I took a picture of it one time. This is a potato. Okay, this is a sweet potato, but it's not like our sweet potato. Imagine it being like a potato, an actual potato, but then sweet. It's thick and heavy like a potato, but our sweet potato is lighter and stringier. This is like heavy like a potato and then sweet. And it's really very good, but you get like 2 slices of it and you're full. I mean, it's very filling. And this is kachumbari, which I brought, and then this is ugali, which I also have. These are all breakfast foods. This is pancake, which is one of my favorites. It's like a crepe, but it's thicker, and it's really delicious. And Esther made them, I think only one time for me, but I love them. And she made some tonight, so you can try that. This is called mandazi, and think sopapilla. It's like a fried dough, and you can they have honey and jam and butter that you can put with it. This is an actual Kenyan donut, which was not very good. I had that in Kitui. Fried egg, and that is some kind of tomato sauce, but it's not like our ketchup at all. It's very runny. This was breakfast at one of the hotels. That's Theo's plate. I didn't eat this meal. Another breakfast at a hotel. I had bought instant coffee, so they'd boil me water and I would make coffee. And then this was my breakfast most days, was just bread with butter and jam. And then you can see my nice concoction of pills right here that I took every morning. And then this, does anyone know what fruit that is?
Papaya.
Papaya. This is a papaya tree in Esther's yard. There are more than 20 papayas on that tree for free. You can go right out there, pick one off, and have yourself a really tasty fruit. This is the second hotel. If you can tell what this is, this is the branch that's holding the bananas. They just hacked the branch and stuck it in there. That's pretty farm fresh too, right? And then these are the bananas. I'm trying to show the size here because they're like miniature. They're teeny tiny bananas. You can kind of tell here more of how small they are. And so you can eat like 3 or 4. It's not filling like our bananas. And then I think that's mango, right? Yeah, we had quite a few mangoes that were really good. And this is a jar of pickles that Esther brought from America. And then these are all dinner foods. Does anyone know what this is?
I do. I know.
It's scrambled egg. That does not look like scrambled egg, does it? I had this in a restaurant in Nairobi. It was not very good at all. I mean, I didn't think eggs you could really mess up, but they were not good. This is cabbage, which cabbage is one of my favorite things there. And then avocado, we ate a lot of avocado. Avocados are like 10 cents there. So I was like, I need to eat a lot of them. In America, they're like $2.
Yeah.
And this is ugali and kachumbari, which we have. Ugali is just white cornmeal and water. And there's different ways you can eat it. You can eat it with stew, or you can eat it with milk and sugar, or you can eat it with honey. And so I believe we're having it with honey. Did you bring the honey? Uh-oh. Okay. Well, we have ugali here. And then this is a potato that was cooked in stew. This is actually ramen. They do sell ramen there in Kitui. But it's not, our ramen is like soup, but the way they cook it there, because they don't really know what they're doing, and other people were cooking for us, it was just like a plate of noodle. And I just really want to say thank you so much to this church, because I know that you prayed for me. I know it because I could tell. And it was so successful, and you all were part of it too, with your prayers. So I really appreciate all the support from Trinity.
All right. Well, thanks for that. And, well, if you can stick around, we've got some Kenyan food for everyone. If you want to